HBO Sports presents World Championship Boxing. First, a middleweight championship fight between the undisputed champion, Marvin Haglar, and Mustafa Hamsho. And then a WBA heavyweight championship fight between the champion, Mike Weaver, and James Quick Tillis. Live from the Rosemont Horizon in Rosemont, Illinois, HBO Sports presents World Championship Boxing. First, the WBA WBC middleweight champion of the world, Marvin Haglar, defends his crown against the WBC's #1 ranked contender, Mustafa Hamsho. Then, hello, everybody. I'm Barry Tompkins, along with the undisputed welterweight champion of the world, Sugar Ray Leonard, and, of course, our longtime boxing cohort here on HBO, Larry Merchant. We got a doubleheader for you tonight. First, going to talk about the Marvin Haglar-Mustafa Hamsho fight. Ray, I think it's a fact that Marvin Haglar has been troubled in the past by people who crowd him. Vito Antuofermo to name one. He's going to get that same kind of fighter tonight in Mustafa Hamsho.
Well, Barry, without question, Hamsho will be the aggressive. He'll come in trying to brawl and try to roughhouse Haglar because that's all his style permits him to do. On the other hand, I think you're going to see a boxing Haglar, a guy that's on the move and trying to find a solution to take care of Hamsho.
Well, even though Haglar has been troubled by guys who really rush at him, nonetheless, Marvin Haglar, in the times that you and I have seen him, has been the master of all.
He's the straighter puncher. He's more resourceful defensively. He's going to try to ward off Hamsho. Hamsho's job really is to keep pressing, stay right inside him, join him at the head like Siamese twins, and then in the last 6 or 7 rounds, try to out-hustle him.
Well, Mustafa Hamsho is a guy whose record is virtually unscathed. For him, this is a very, very big opportunity indeed. For the champion, Marvin Haglar, Hamsho is a guy who is simply in his way. Mustafa Hamsho is the #1 ranked WBC middleweight contender. His rise to the top began on June 15, 1980, when he won by default over Wilfred Scipion. It was in the 10th round when Scipion went flying through the ropes. After being counted out, Scipion went to his dressing room and was disqualified when Michigan boxing officials ordered the fight to resume. But Scipion was unable to return to the ring. Then on February 15th of this year, there was more controversy. Hamsho won a hotly debated split decision over highly regarded Curtis Parker to move one step closer to a shot at Marvin Haglar's crown. The Syrian buzzsaw had won his 31st consecutive fight and had just one more hurdle before he would be granted a title fight. June 6, 1981, Mustafa Hamsho had to beat former champion Alan Minter to earn a date with marvelous Marvin Haglar. It was another split decision, but this time a hungrier Mustafa Hamsho was clearly the victor. There was no doubt that the Syrian middleweight was deserving of a long-awaited dream, a shot at the middleweight champion of the world. It was a dream which Marvin Haglar knew very well. It was on November 30th of 1979 when Marvin Haglar challenged middleweight champion Vito Antuofermo in one of the most memorable and controversial battles in boxing history. Even though most ringside observers gave the fight to Haglar, it was ruled a draw. Vito Antuofermo retained the title, and a disappointed Marvin was forced to sit and wait. Finally, on September 27, 1980, Marvin Haglar had his second shot at the title. Now, Alan Minter was the undisputed champion. But after 3 brutal rounds of boxing, Marvin Haglar had fulfilled his lifelong mission. The middleweight crown was all his, and not even a showering of beer bottles by irate British fight fans could disrupt his moment of glory. Then on January 17th of 1981, in Boston Garden, Marvelous Marvin won his first title defense against Fulgencio Ovalmajias. The fight was stopped in the 8th round as Marvin sent out a message to the boxing world. He had worked too long and too hard for his 2 championship belts. His motto was to destroy those brave enough to try and take them away. And finally revenge. It was June 13th this year when Marvin avenged the bitter draw with Vito the Mosquito. It was a night of controversy as each man accused the other of repeated butting. Freddie Brown would not let Vito Antifermo answer the bell for the 5th round, and Marvin Haglar retained the crown he so desperately wants to keep. Which brings us to tonight, as Marvin Haglar defends his undisputed middleweight crown against the #1 ranked WBC contender, Mustafa Hamsho. So it is the middleweight championship of the world here as Mustafa Hamsho comes into the ring. Marvin Haglar, the champion. Mustafa Hamsho, as you see, the WBC's #1 ranked contender. And here is the psychological end of things, which we'll talk about right after we look at the tail of the tape. Haglar, of course, 2 years the senior of Hamsho, otherwise rather comparable. If there's any kind of a surprise, Larry, it's that Haglar came in a little lighter than expected.
He came in very light. One interpretation is that since he has had some problems with his stamina against this type of fighter in the past, that he worked extra hard, and he is a very hard worker to begin with. The Hamsho people are saying maybe he left his fight in the gym.
Take a look at some of the common opponents, and there have been many. Cove Green, of course, we all know and love him. Alan Minter, probably the most known of the common opponents. Ironically, Boogaloo Watts, who was knocked out in 7 rounds by Mustafa Hamsho, beat Marvin Haglar, but Haglar, as you can see, came back and knocked out Watts in 2 rounds. But Alan Minter really probably the most likely common denominator, and I think Haglar had an easier time with him, Ray, than did Hamsho.
Well, guys like Hamsho, they aggressive fighters, pretty much brawl type fighters, and it's very difficult to fight guys of that style.
Ray, I want to ask you too, here's the great psychological game. You didn't let this happen in your fight with Tommy Hearns, but it's happening right now to Mustafa Hamsho. He's got to sit and wait.
Well, this is the biggest moment of Hamsho's life. I mean, to fight for a world championship and to actually wait. And you know, you see all the people that are here, it gets to you. Your butterflies begin to multiply.
He has, however, 2 very experienced men with him who manage and train him. Al Braverman, one of the great colorful characters in boxing. Patty Flood, another one. The last time they were in a championship corner was Chuck Wepner, the original Rocky, when he fought Muhammad Ali.
The Bayonne Bleeder, of course. I think you saw an interesting graphic there of the most recent action for Mustafa Hamsho. And the one that really jumps out at me, at least, is the fight with Curtis Parker. That was a very, very questioned decision. It was a split decision that Hamsho got.
He's had a few close decisions, but he manages to win them.
Interested observer here in Chicago, Muhammad Ali, who you can just see his eyes peeking up over the top of the head. He, of course, still a very popular figure, although now I would have to think he is taking a back seat to the guy between us, Larry, Sugar Ray Leonard.
Another interested spectator here, if we can get a hold of him, is Tony Zale. Who you're seeing right there is Mustafa Hamsho's mother, who flew all the way from Syria to see her son fight. The first time she will have seen him fight. Mustafa Hamsho lost his first professional fight. They say it was to a light heavyweight in the light heavyweight's hometown, and he hasn't lost since then. And like him, Haglar hasn't lost in 5 years either, so both of them know how to win. I was mentioning Tony Zale before. Zale, probably the last great hometown hero in Chicago, although he came from nearby Gary, Indiana.
Haglar making his way now down the stairs in the ante-room to the horizon here, looking very loose, very calm. He has made his man sit and wait for a long time. That's a great cooling out period, I would think, Ray, for Mustafa Hamsho.
It is. As a matter of fact, I tried to do the same thing with Tommy Hearns, although I cooperated and came out a little sooner.
And Haglar again, looking calm and surrounded by his own people, the Petronelli brothers, of course, Steve Wainwright, the attorney from Boston. The crowd starts to catch its first glimpse of marvelous Marvin Haglar now. He is a very, very popular fighter. I find him, Larry, to be almost a throwback. He's a guy who's really dedicated, trains equally hard for everybody, I think.
He's a very persistent human being, because most fighters who had to go over the hurdles and through the obstacles he did would have given up a long time ago. He persisted and fought his way into the #1 ranking and finally got his title shot. You know, we had thought here on HBO that he would come to Las Vegas, to do the color on the fight between Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns, but he refused to take time off from his training.
He has a great deal of dedication. Of course, he is the most popular fighter to come out of Brockton, Massachusetts since that heavyweight, Rocky Marciano. But he has really captured the folks up in Massachusetts, and I think you can tell from the fan reaction as he makes his way toward the ring now that he is the chosen right here in Chicago, too, at the Horizon. He's a very popular fighter, been around a long time, had a lot of trouble getting fights. People just didn't want any part of him, and now, this, of course, is his third title defense as he comes into the ring now. And he has said it time and again himself that he will fight anybody, anytime. The money is right. Now they say he won't fight for less than $1 million. And Ray, I can't say I really blame him. He has not had the big paydays.
Well, I think Haglar deserves the big paydays, and that's the reason I want to give him an opportunity to make some big bucks.